Yo, 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 yo. What it is. Man, better late than never. So, we got to discuss this Senate hearing that Dr. Fauci had. Now, mind you, these hearings is nothing but like a formality. Nothing never comes out of it. Like, I don't think, at least, to my recollection, have I ever seen somebody arrested after these hearings. Ever. I guess this is like part of, trying to remain transparent. But you can't be transparent when obvious crimes taking place and nobody is held accountable. Like, this country is very selective about who they hold accountable for crimes that's committed. If you got a certain level of influence or hold a certain position, you can damn near do anything in this country and get away with it. But at the same time, they want us to villainize and demonize citizens for committing crimes that's way less. I'm not gonna say less, but that doesn't affect as many people. We talking about COVID-19, Millions of people allegedly died from this virus. Who, from the beginning, I called it the flu. And but the good thing I think came out of this is I think during this time, a lot of people started waking up to the realities of America and how this system operates. I think a lot of people started waking up to it and realizing that just because something on the news, that don't necessarily make it true. Cause I think before this, I know, at least for me, I believed what the news said. I thought they was reputable sources. But what COVID-19 proved is that, these people have an agenda. And they will go to whatever lengths they got to go to prove this agenda and to make sure this agenda, gets followed through. Make sure they succeed in whatever they're trying to push. Now, COVID-19 is when I first started going on the internet and speaking. Because if y'all can remember during that time, it was a lot going on. You had the president election was around the corner. You had COVID-19. You had George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter. Like, that was a wild time in American history. And this is around the same time when blogs and bloggers really started taking off. Like, people started making millions of dollars on the internet. This is around the time when censorship started. They came after Alex Jones, pushed him off the internet. And I also think this is around the same time when they brought their own people on. I think this is when America recognized that you can't stop independent media. Independent media is a thing of the future, and it's going to be around. And the only way we can combat it, because we got to control the narrative, is if we create our own people. So there was a lot going on in these years, man. During this time, you couldn't even say anything about COVID. You couldn't say nothing about Biden. Like, I was being shadow banned. They probably shadow banned this video, too. I was being shadow banned on Facebook for telling black people not to vote for Biden. Because Biden was a racist. And Biden policies and the things that he endorsed is a huge reason why, black people are in the position that we in today. And I don't think they wanted that message out there, because they were still trying to push this ideology that the Democratic Party was the party for blacks. You feel me? Now I ain't never going. I ain't no Democrat or Republican, so I gotta make that clear. I think everybody should be independent. But I think when it comes down to the Democratic Party, I think if you want to weigh the damage that these two parties did to the black community, I think by far you could put the blame on the Democratic Party. By far. You feel me? But Dr. Fauci had a hearing today. I mean 3 days ago. Senate hearing. Keep it deep in the court. I might gotta turn the truck on. Alright, so listen to this, y'all. Oh, Dr. Fauci.
You deserve to know why dangerous research was funded by NIAID in a totalitarian country in a lab that lacked acceptable safety standards. The decision to fund dangerous gain-of-function research in Wuhan, China, will likely go down in history as perhaps one of the worst public health decisions. Frankly, the American people deserve an apology. I hope today Dr. Fauci will come clean, admit it was a mistake to fund dangerous research in China, admit that the risk of this dangerous research exceeded any possible benefits.
Another thing that went on too before we get too far in this. So hit that like button, man. Share the live, cause they ain't gonna promote this video at all. Cause for the most part, the Democratic Party at this time put a lot of pressure on the federal government. Mark Zuckerberg came out and apologized, to the users of Facebook for what they was doing to people. And we covered that. Let me see if I can find that. I was one of them ones on Facebook that was being targeted. I told y'all before. That when I was trying to upload my videos, man, it was giving me so much problems, man. Like serious problems, like cutting my phone off, freezing my phone. Like I was going through all of this just because I was trying to enlighten people on what the fuck was going on. They ultimately end up taking my page, which in turn took all my videos. So a lot of topics I spoke on back then, you can't even find them. Cause they took my page for no reason. You can't even find an apology video. They must have wiped that bitch off the internet. Matter of fact, I might got it in on my page. Let me see. Shit. I probably need to put that bitch in. I probably need to put the name in the title. That shit crazy. Every time I try to find this video, I can't find it. Hold on. Mark Zuckerberg pressure by Democrats.
Mark Zuckerberg pressure by Democrats.
Here you go.
What's up with your English grade?
I don't want to talk about it.
If traditional high school isn't working for your team.
Today, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg saying he regrets not being more outspoken about what he called pressure from the Biden administration to censor content. The Facebook founder claiming the White House repeatedly pushed for the company to censor posts related to COVID-19 during the pandemic, saying administration officials expressed a lot of frustration when the tech giant resisted. Zuckerberg in a letter to the House Judiciary Committee saying, "I believe the government pressure was wrong," adding, "I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards and we're ready to push back if something like this happens again." The administration had stressed efforts to target misinformation online. President Biden asked about this the summer of 2021.
On COVID misinformation, what's your message?
We do turn now to senior.
They don't even got the apology. They don't even got it on here no more. Here you go.
While they're trying to push that program, they also tried to censor anyone who was basically arguing against it. And they pushed us super hard to take down things that were honestly were true, right? I mean, they basically pushed us and said.
And it wasn't just that. Like, it wasn't just that, yo. It was COVID. It was Black Lives Matter. It was anything you had to say against Biden. That shit was being silenced. I'm trying to tell you, man. Like, that shit was crazy. Yo, my phone used to cut off, yo. I tried to upload videos and they'd cut my phone off. Like, y'all know I don't get on here and lie. You feel me? If I tell you something, you can fucking stamp it. They was cutting my phone off, freezing my phone, logging me out the app. I'll try to upload a 5-minute video. That bitch might take a whole day to upload. Yeah, y'all. That shit was real. That was a wild time in America, man.
Said, anything that says that vaccines might have side effects, you basically need to take down. And I was just like, well, we're not going to do that. Like, we're clearly not going to do that. I mean, that's
He lying. They did that shit. I'm fucking proof they did that shit. He lying. He trying to save face. You might ain't do it to the loudest voices, but for the ones that was coming up speaking on that shit, oh man, you made sure that motherfucker ain't never see the light of day.
that is kind of inarguably true.
Who is they? Who's telling you to take down things that
Yeah, it was
that talk about vaccine side effects?
It was people in the Biden administration. While they're trying to put.
He did another video. It was like an IG live. And for some fucking reason.
We're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. Fact check.
Oh, this ain't it. It was in similar form like that video. Can't even find that bitch online no more. Alright, but anyway, let's get the old Dr. Fauci and the role he played in the nonsense.
So I just found this app, Grant Cash Advance, and I got a $200 cash advance fast. Download Grant Cash Advance from the App Store today.
Don't buy that camera that's going viral to keep burglars away.
I might gotta change the title. Look, they silencing this video.
I got a premium home security.
Ain't no way we only got 10 people in this bitch.
Some basic questions.
Disability, it gained function. In 2018, the same group of scientists, EcoHealth, Barrick, Xi, and their collaborators submitted the diffuse proposal, which involved the insertion of a furin cleavage site into the coronavirus. DARPA rejected it as too dangerous. When COVID was sequenced, though, early on in January of 2020, within days, scientists discovered that, lo and behold, it had a novel furin cleavage site, just as had been proposed in the diffuse project.
And my whole thing,
this was either an extraordinary coincidence.
I already got the car. And my whole thing, right, when it came down to COVID, yo, it's a fucking flu. Yo, once a virus, I drove through there. I did road crew in PG County when I was locked up out GPRU. But yo, once a virus go airborne, ain't nothing you can do to stop it. That's why this whole shutting down the country and social distancing. That's why I'm like, yo, none of that shit matters. You feel me? Because if any of that could have stopped COVID, then the common flu or the common cold would have never became a thing. We could have been able to stop that shit too. It was no way stopping that virus once it became airborne, yo. And when you listen to the studies that was done about it, and how the virus was transforming in the human body and shit like that, you're like, yo, hold up, yo, this shit ain't normal. This some shit that was generated out of lab. I used to have arguments with my peoples about this. They used to think, oh, you just a conspiracy theorist. I'm like, yo, I'm telling you, yo, this shit ain't right. It ain't right. I'm telling you, there's some shit that was designed and got out the lab, and you know, now it's all starting to come out. But the sad thing about it is the person who promoted it and endorsed it face no accountability. No accountability. But when we got local drug dealers, we want to throw the book at them. We supposed to look at these guys like the worst of the community. But you got these guys who selling drugs on a major scale. Even the opioid companies, Johnson and Johnson and the Sackler family and all of them. Yo, they profited fucking trillions off the opioid epidemic, and was able to just pay. It was able to pay states money while nobody be held liable. Here go my cousin right here. I was arguing with. No, look, there you go. So you know I ain't lied. This my cousin right here. I used to argue with about this shit. And every time we bring this conversation up, he want to transition out of what he was saying back then. Yo, you said I was a conspiracy theorist, bro. I ain't know what I was talking about, yo. That's what you said. We ain't doing that. We ain't doing that. You know what you said.
Coincidence or a smoking gun? Evidence that the Chinese had created COVID-19. It made the laboratory origin question more legitimate, and it made your categorical public denials indefensible. On May 11th, 2021, you told the Senate the NIH has never, ever, and does not now fund gain-of-function research in Wuhan, in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. When I gave you the opportunity to correct the record, to reconsider the statement, you responded that you had never before lied to Congress. We were then told that only the government's narrowest regulation of definition counted here.
That's what you need to do. You need to be apologizing for having me argue with you over these years, and you was dead wrong and ain't know what you talking about. Anything outside of that, I ain't try here, nigga. You need to be like, yo, you right, yo. I was wrong, yo. I believe these people when you was telling me these people was lying. That's what you need to do. I bet you don't. You don't never want to admit when you're wrong.
Function in one way in which this wasn't gain of function, in which all of the common sense of the world would be thrown out, all of the idea that the mice were dying and the virus was more transmissible didn't matter because you had a technical definition that allowed you to fund it. But the real question is, was it dangerous? Was it a wise decision to fund this? And you haven't deviated from that. You've never admitted that it could have been a mistake funding this research in China. The American people weren't asking for a semantics debate over what is gain of function. They were asking, does common sense say this research was dangerous in Wuhan? They wanted to know whether their money-funded experiments in Wuhan that made bat coronaviruses better able to infect humans. The answer is yes. They wanted to know whether NIAID adequately supervised their work. The answer is no. When you defended this research, you described its benefits in the broadest terms. But when Congress demanded accountability, you hid behind the narrowest possible definition. You can't have it both ways. Your conduct concerning federal records raises further questions. It is a crime to destroy federal records. Yet our investigation reveals your assistant diligently reported that she deleted tons of emails. In 2024, you testified that you did not delete federal records. Who's telling the truth? You or your assistant? The committee has obtained repeated instructions from you telling federal officials to delete communications. On February 2nd, 2020, one day after Origin's call, you told Francis Collins, please delete this email after you read it. The committee asked for your voluntary cooperation to come today. Your appearance had to be compelled by subpoena. You're here today under duress. You're here today because of the court ordering it. President Biden issued you a sweeping pardon extending back to 2014, the same pardon he gave to his son Hunter.
A pardon may protect a person from criminal prosecution, doesn't rewrite history. It does not erase documents. It does not convert a misleading statement into a truthful one. And it does not prevent Congress from establishing what happened. There will be another pandemic. There will be another crisis. And there will again be officials who insist that uncertainty must be hidden for the public's own good. They will demand obedience. They will invoke science. I am the science, as though it were a commandment. They will argue that government officials cannot be questioned because questioning them would undermine public trust. They have it backwards. It is secrecy that destroys trust. It is arrogance that destroys trust. It is censorship that destroys trust. And it is the refusal to admit error that destroys trust. That loss of trust may be your most damaging legacy. Trust can't be ordered. It has to be earned. No scientist is above scrutiny. No government official is beyond accountability. And no public servant has the right to treat the suffering of millions of Americans as a footnote to his preferred version of history.
If you got hit, even as a passenger or in an Uber, you need to try this. I'm an attorney. I've been doing this for years. And I'm standing here because most people walk away from accidents leaving tens of thousands of dollars on the table and nobody tells them. Look at this. This is a real settlement. One of our clients, car accident, almost a year after when he came to us. Most people assume they missed their shot. They think, yeah, it was too long ago. My injuries weren't that bad. I don't know if it's worth it. That's exactly what the insurance company wants you to think. Here's what they don't tell you. If you were injured in a car accident in the last year, Phil, even if you were a passenger, even if the accident seemed minor known, you may still be.
I now recognize.
I talked about that yesterday. Yeah, I talked about WAC 100 banning the police yesterday. They probably shadow banning me right now, man.
Senator Peters for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee has a long and a very proud history of conducting serious oversight on behalf of the American people. When this committee has been at its best, Democrats and Republicans have worked together to investigate complicated issues, to follow the facts wherever they may lead, and produce recommendations that actually strengthen our nation's security and government functions. That bipartisan tradition has produced meaningful work following Hurricane Katrina, the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, failures at the Secret Service, and countless other matters. Unfortunately, today's hearing is the latest step in the chairman's sharp departure from that long tradition. This hearing appears to be a culmination of months of biased and selected efforts by the majority under the guise of a committee investigation to basically legitimize a predetermined conclusion that was reached years ago. In 2021, the chairman has called for today's witness to be fired, to be arrested, accused him of leading cover-ups and conspiracies. He has even featured the witness.
But he did, though. I don't want to hear this nigga. He talking nonsense.
At the same time, the administration cuts to global health programs and international partnerships have greatly reduced our ability to contain danger.
Let's get to the
of the Constitution of professionals.
Let's get to
national as a chief advisor. Have you refused this pardon, or do you have any reason to believe this full?
Let's go back.
Declined to answer based upon the of the Constitution. Therefore, truth and nothing but the truth. So,
yo, the funny thing about this, right, is he declined to answer all these questions. But when COVID was going on, man, you couldn't. This nigga was on every fucking channel. I think he might have even been on ESPN. This nigga was on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, fucking Fox Sports, ESPN, goddamn BT. Yeah, man. Yo, when this shit was going on, he had all the answers. You heard me? Now he don't got no answers. Like, oh, this shit is crazy, man. This is diabolical work right here, man. Yo, ain't no perjury trap. He already been. He can't go to jail. He can't purge himself. He can't purge himself. He already been pardoned. He got pardoned when Biden left office. That's what this is. So it's not a perjury trap. You said it's a perjury trap. I'm saying it's not. See, there you go, yo. Yo, you wrong, yo. You need to listen. I done did enough arguing with you over the years. You're wrong. So it's time. I'm not even responding to you right now. Because it's time for you to listen. Because you was wrong from the beginning.
Put all of the information on the website. It continues to operate. The reason it hasn't been accessed is no Democrat ever signed up for it. Not one Democrat. We told them the access. They never asked for the access code. They haven't been on the website because they have not cared about the investigation.
It does, y'all. It does. It does. You want to go to the line of questioning where the guy told him? It does. You cannot, if he already been pardoned, which means he can't invoke his Fifth Amendment right. Because he already been pardoned. He got pardoned from any crimes related to COVID-19, bro. What are you talking about? Perjury is a charge. Cecil, it ain't just a word. People go to jail for perjury.
No Democrat ever signed up for it. Not one Democrat. We told them the access. They never asked for the access code. They haven't been on the website because they have not cared about the investigation. It's the practice of this committee to swear in the witness. Dr. Fauci, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you will give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Dr. Anthony Fauci, you are recognized for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Member Peters, members of the committee, I served at the NIH for over 54 years, 38 of those as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Over that period, I proved that I believe in and respect the value of legitimate congressional oversight. In fact, I testified before and or briefed Senate and House committees well over 200 times over those 38 years. During and after the COVID pandemic, I have appeared multiple times.
Well, he shouldn't have had nothing to hide. If everything he was doing was honest and truthful, then he shouldn't have nothing to hide. So it shouldn't be no perjury. Only time you purge yourself is if you're telling a lie, yo. If you're dealing the truth, you shouldn't have to worry about no perjury, no nothing. You telling the truth. So it shouldn't be no perjury trap. What do you trap him how? Trap him how if you being honest? No.
Hearings
I'm not.
in the Senate and the House, usually under
You
oath,
just want to be right
and
and
sat
wrong.
for several
I ain't even
days-long
no more.
transcribed sworn interviews, answering questions about the very issues that are now the subject of this hearing. However, given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution, his repeated slanderous comments about me, and recently his publicly releasing my unredacted personal diary aimed at embarrassing and intimidating me, the only conclusion I can reach is that the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something, anything, that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars, unquote. Any reasonable person who has followed his unhinged obsession with me would readily come to the same conclusion. Therefore, although it pains me to do so, because of the respect I have for the legislative branch of government and my decades-long record of cooperating with Congress.
Yeah, I'm not listening to nothing he says. This man's a fucking liar. Like, you trying to listen. I don't believe nothing he says. So I'm not listening to him. He'd already lied once. You lied once, you lied twice. Once I catch a person in a lie, I don't want to hear nothing else. Like, nothing he says is credible.
Under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
All right, you got to stop buying generic Viagra if y'all over 40.
See, that's my little cousin, yo. That's why he's so upset. You know, that's why he want to argue. Because I told him this years ago. And he used to argue with me about this whole COVID shit. And he has an inability of accepting when he's wrong. Like, whenever he's wrong, he just try to like, oh, that wasn't the argument. It really was this. Like, he'd never be like, yo, you was right, yo. COVID-19 was a play, yo. That shit wasn't as bad as they were saying. He'd never do that. So that's why you see him in the comments saying what he's saying.
$7 with free shipping from Friday Plan. If you think it's a scam like I did at first,
It's not. It's proven.
We will now begin a round of questioning. Dr. Fauci, your testimony today is compelled by a lawful subpoena. As you know, it's a crime under 18 U.S.C. Section 1001 to knowingly make a material false statement to Congress, with a penalty up to 5 years of imprisonment. Understanding that you are under oath, the American people would like to understand your reasoning, your rationale for why you chose to fund the research in Wuhan. There have been, intelligence agencies, the CIA, the FBI, the DOE, have all come to the conclusion that more likely than not, the virus came from the lab in Wuhan. And so we'd like to know what was the rationale, what was the discussion, what went behind the decision to fund the research in Wuhan? How did you come to the conclusion that a totalitarian country?
Now, I told him it came from a lab years ago. He said, yo, it didn't come from a lab. What do you mean? You must don't know how viruses work. Like, this is what he used to tell me, yo. You must don't know how viruses work. You know, viruses, they do this and do that and do this and all this other shit. I'm like, yo, it came from a lab, man. I'm telling you, it came from a lab in China. He still have yet to acknowledge that he was wrong. So I'm not even responding to him no
The
more.
lack of security. What was the reasoning? And are you sorry, basically, for making the decision? Would you, to fund this dangerous research in China?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
In the red folder on your table is a copy of Section 192
No,
of
it's not.
Title
Look,
2 of the
there you
US
go.
Code.
See, so just stop. No, it's not what you said, bro. It's not what you said, y'all. If you'd have said that, we wouldn't have been arguing so much, right? It's not what you said, yo. You know what you said.
Your counsel has been provided a copy as well. That section makes it a crime for a witness appearing under subpoena to refuse to answer any questions pertinent to the question under inquiry. Do you have that in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Let the record record that the witness has refused to answer whether there's a folder in front of him based on his Fifth Amendment right. It is true that you're appearing under direction of our subpoena to provide testimony on matters under consideration by the committee, including the origins of COVID-19, risky life sciences research, and your tenure as a federal government employee. Additionally, you've been provided a full and unconditional pardon, dated January 19th, 2025, for any offenses against the United States which may have been committed or taken part from January 1st, 2014 through the date of the pardon for a 10-year period, arising from or in any manner related to your service as Director of the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, as a member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, or the White House COVID-19 Response Team, or as Chief Medical Advisor to the President.
You hear this? He's pardoned from anything involving his time at... Let's do it again, Cecil, since you want to be slow. And you disrupting the live, yo.
Risky life sciences research and your tenure as a federal government employee. Additionally, matters under consideration by the committee, including the origins of COVID-19, risky life sciences.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Let the record record that the witness has refused to answer whether there's a folder in front of him based on his Fifth Amendment right. It is true that you're appearing under direction of our subpoena to provide testimony on matters under consideration by the committee, including the origins of COVID-19, risky life sciences research, and your tenure as a federal government employee. Additionally, you've been provided a full and unconditional pardon, dated January 19th, 2025, for any offenses against the United States which may have been committed or taken part from January 1st, 2014 through the date of the pardon for a 10-year period, arising from or in any manner related to your service as Director of the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, as a member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force or the White House COVID-19 response team or as Chief Medical Advisor to the President. Have you refused this pardon, or do you have any reason to believe this full and unconditional pardon, this grant of immunity, would somehow require you to plead the Fifth Amendment?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Based on the facts presented, I'm going to direct you to answer the questions. The committee has issued a valid subpoena. They have requested your presence here. The questions are very pertinent to your decision-making as head of NIAID, as well as a chief advisor to the president. Do you still refuse to answer the questions?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Let's do this.
Exactly.
Your next breakdown.
Exactly, man. Ain't no need to plead the Fifth. You telling the truth. Fuck you pleading the Fifth for? So you telling the truth.
Dr. Fauci, were you ever made aware of gain-of-function research on monkeypox being conducted at the National Biodefense Analysis and Countermeasure Center in back at Fort Detrick?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Dr. Fauci, did the CIA ever transfer funds to NIH under an interagency agreement?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
I'm going to if I need the long list of questions. Dr. Fauci, did the NIH ever conduct research for or in coordination with any element of the intelligence community, CIA, ODNI?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
The reason why these questions are important is, President Trump has done a ban, and we're glad that he did a ban on gain-of-function research. So we're better off than we were when we had an advocate serving as head of NIAID, an advocate for gain-of-function research. There is still, though, a question, though, whether or not the intelligence community is adhering to that order. There's a question of whether or not gain-of-function research is still ongoing. And these are important questions the American people deserve to know. Dr. Fauci, have you been read into any classified Department of Homeland Security program, any prospective special access program concerning gain-of-function research?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
When we look at the research in China, the gain-of-function research that you've denied was gain-of-function, one of the things that startled the scientists when they saw COVID in the first couple of weeks was when they looked at the sequence of it, they said, oh my God, there's a furin cleavage site in it. And in this particular family of coronaviruses, the sarbecoviruses, they'd never seen this before. They were also startled to look at it and see how it was coded for, what the codons were, and to discover that the codons used out of 36 different possibilities turned out to be the one that was commonly used in gene manipulation by scientists. Dr. Fauci, were the scientists at the Wuhan Institute of Virology
he never want to admit when he's wrong, yo. Like, how he talking about, I don't know about politics, but this nigga argued with me vigorously that what was being said was truthful. And he understood social distancing and all that other dumbass shit. You don't pay him no mind, yo. He not good at taking accountability, man. Like, I've been going through this with him for years. You feel me?
Signed into coronavirus.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
So one of the experiments that was pretty common was they would take the backbone of a SARS virus, and this would be a SARS virus that the backbone itself wasn't that dangerous, but then they would dig through guano, 300 feet underground, bat guano. They'd find other viruses, unknown viruses. They'd take the S protein off of an unknown virus and stick it on a backbone. And then they would infect mice that have humanized cells. And they were trying to discover if they could create a virus that infects humans. Now, many people would say, well, gosh, that doesn't sound like a really good idea to create viruses that don't exist in nature to see if they'll infect human cells. What if one escaped? What if you keep infecting this and do serial passage, you actually adapt the virus to be infectious to humans? So the question is whether or not Dr. Fauci, the Wuhan Institute of Virology, was combining an S protein with one virus with the backbone of others, and could this lead to a virus, maybe it wasn't even predicted, but could it lead to viruses that gained in function and then could lead to a pandemic?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth
Yo,
Amendment.
it was obvious. It was obvious. You heard what he just mentioned. Like when scientists looked at it, this is a virus that's doing things. It's not moving like a normal virus. It was obvious that it was man-made and it was created in the lab. That's what I was trying to explain. That's what I was trying to explain to my little cousin all these years. He just couldn't accept it. He felt like he just couldn't accept it, yo. He couldn't fathom that the American government would be so dishonest, and devious. Couldn't fathom it, man. He thought it was a conspiracy. I thought it was more than likely. You understand what I'm saying? I thought it was obvious. He called it a conspiracy.
The Constitution.
One of the arguments that you and others have made against this virus coming from the lab is it couldn't have come from the viruses that have been published. And nobody's really arguing that. I think from the very beginning, people acknowledged that the viruses that have been published are too far evolutionarily distant from a virus that could have become COVID-19. But what has never been acknowledged by the side who tries to call the other side of conspiracy theory, which is really something you don't usually see in a scientific debate. This is the first time I've ever seen an article printed in Lancet by your friends who called this a conspiracy theory. These are the kind of things you see as a screed on a political, website. You don't really see this in science. But when they release this as being a conspiracy theory, we're wondering that when you do this, when you combine these viruses and are able to grow them in humanized cells, whether or not this kind of risky research, whether you call it gain of function or not, whether you use the definition of gain of function, whether this kind of research should have had more scrutiny. I think in your House testimony, you testified that you never traveled to China and that you were unaware that anybody at NIH ever examined the labs, that you trusted the Chinese scientists. I think you said that even recently, that with your discretion, you trusted the Chinese scientists. The problem is that even in our country, we trust our scientists. They're good American scientists, probably doing the right thing for America. But at the same time, we oversight to make sure it's not dangerous research, but we also investigate the lab. I believe Fort Detrick was one of our main labs. It was closed down in the last year or two because of, Research Institute, a research incident that was dangerous with dangerous pathogens. And so the American people would want to know, how could you approve this dangerous research in China, say that you trusted the Chinese scientists, and then in the end, you had to admit that you'd never been there. None of your inspectors had ever been there. Dr. Fauci, had any of the labs where this dangerous research was occurring, were any American lab oversight or lab investigators, did they ever appear in these labs to make sure that they were safe labs?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Shit's disgusting, y'all. It's sad how they just allow this man, how they allow him to get away with this shit, man.
So one of the main theories for those who have looked at this being created in the lab was the idea that could have come from a virus not previously published. Dr. Fauci, are you aware that Dr. Shi, who worked for the Wuhan Institute of Virology, was said to, and I think in her own words, to have over 100 viruses that had not been previously published that could have been a close enough relative to create COVID-19? Are you aware of that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Under your testimony previously, when you denied ever having funded gain of function in China, it was so adamant as to be striking, to leave no room for any interpretation of what is or isn't gain of function research. But there's another important question. Did you fund gain of function research in other biolabs around the world?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
This shit's sad, yo.
Research project that we do know you did.
We need to find the highlights.
One that Ron Fouchier did. It's important to talk about because this sort of was the beginning of the debate over gain of function. This wasn't just me. I wasn't even aware of the debate 10 years ago. This was other scientists, over 200 scientists at the Cambridge Working Group signed a protest because they didn't think that you should fund the research and they didn't think it should even be funded, published because based on the facts presented, I'm going to direct you to answer the questions. The committee has issued a valid subpoena. They've requested your presence here at the Center and back at Fort Detrick. Aghast. Certainly has done that. Between the house-making process that you decided to fund this. But this is when, the debate came about and you wrote in support of this in the Washington Post and you said, even if a scientist is bitten, even if a pandemic should occur, the knowledge is worth the risks. Do you still stand by that? Would you like to qualify?
You'll say, even if a pandemic should occur, the knowledge is worth the risk. Yo, he just used people as fucking as guinea pigs, as test dummies, man. Got yo, there you go. This yo, that's crazy, yo. Dr. Fauci. Yo, I don't understand how you can live with yourself, yo. Like, yo, these are some evil, sick, demonic people, yo. Yo, he literally just used the American. And I told y'all they don't give a fuck about victims. Yeah, how many times on this platform I said, like, America never cared about victims, man. We got a lot of victims. You know what I mean? In state and overseas. They don't give a fuck about no goddamn victims, man. Yo said, man, fuck it. It's worth it. No matter who dies. You know, it's worth the research. Yo, that is crazy.
Even if a scientist is bitten, even if a pandemic should occur, the knowledge is worth the risks. Do you still stand by that? Would you like to qualify at all whether or not the knowledge of gain of function is worth the risks, particularly in this case, since we now know 15 million people died worldwide? Many people believe this came from the lab. Do you think that the risks really are worth the benefits for gain of function research?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
And I was too, brother. I was just talking about earlier, yo. Like this is when I first came on the internet. I wasn't on YouTube, I was on Facebook. Y'all used to have debates with family members, friends, everybody. Yo, they used to cut my phone off when I tried to upload videos, man. Like, it was crazy what I was going through on social media at this time, yo.
We're going to finish with this question. And it's based really on that statement, that general statement in your support for gain of function. The idea that the benefits outweigh the risks. So there are many other people who disagree. And they aren't politicians or not. I don't know what party they're in. David Relman is probably one of the most esteemed. And he is a scientist at Stanford. He, I think, has classified clearance. He's been a consultant to our government probably for a decade or more. And he's written about this publicly. He says the opposite. He said that the risks of this research do not outweigh the benefits. He said the risk, we shouldn't do it. Richard Ebright, who's been involved in this debate for 2 decades, says the same thing. We really shouldn't be doing this at all. There's a quote also by the Kevin Esfelt quote, is that at the very end? Kevin Esfelt, who's a CRISPR scientist at MIT, also wrote about this gain of function. I implore every scientist, funder, and nation working in the field, please stop.
Yo, it just never made sense, yo. It never made sense, yo. If you know, you can't stop an airborne virus, yo. It was no reason to shut the country down. Like, y'all remember, yo, it was people getting fired. Yo, people was losing their jobs, losing their careers over not wanting to get vaccinated. Like, yo, that shit, yo, that was crazy, yo. That whole situation was wild. And yo, got away with it. Clean. You know what I mean? Smooth getaway. No liability.
Pandemic-capable viruses. No more experiments likely to disseminate blueprints for plagues.
Hell yeah.
Dr. Fauci, would you like to at least answer this one question for us today and let us know whether or not you've changed your mind on whether or not the benefits of gain-of-function research outweigh the risks?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
The chairman has denied your assertion of privilege and directed you to answer, but you nonetheless refuse and stand on privilege despite the
if you think about it too, yo, this when a lot of people got radicalized by social media. Being inside the house and on social media all day, that's when they started pushing all them dangerous narratives. That's when they was pushing the shit. That's when women fell into the trap they fell into. That's when, man, it was just so much going on at that time, yo. It was, the whole thing was just a fucking disaster. The world ain't been the same since.
The committee will have to consider, after this hearing, what appropriate action should be taken against you for the failure to testify after being directed to do so. It's against the law to obstruct an investigation of Congress. There will be repercussions to your refusal to testify today. Senator Peters.
Yep. The whole woke movement, that's what I'm saying. It was Black Lives Matter. You had the election, you had Black Lives Matter, you had the stealing of the election, you had COVID, you had the fucking prices of everything skyrocketed. All this shit happened at the same motherfucking time. All of it. and it was all manufactured. Everybody benefited except for the American people. Like, even with this shit ain't nothing but a formality. They all made out. All of them. The ones that was for it and against it. We the only people that lost.
If you are unruly, you will be removed from the proceeding. You are not recognized, and you are not recognized, sir. Sir, you are not recognized. You are not recognized. Security, we'll hold off. But you will respect these proceedings. You were told not to sit at the table. You insist on sitting at the table, and
They talking to the lawyer. So Fauci came there with his lawyer. Ultimately, they ended up removing the lawyer out of the proceedings.
You would not be recognized. You are not invited here for testimony, sir. You are being disruptive. Would you behave this way in a courtroom? No, because the judge would put you in jail. I can't do that today, but I can have you escorted from the premises. So I would say, sir, sit quietly and don't say another word. I said, sit quietly. You are not recognized. Another word and you're gone.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear what the attorney has to say.
He is not recognized by the committee or the chair. If he speaks again, he will be removed from the room. This testimony is from Anthony Fauci. This is not a game with his lawyers. He can advise. His lawyers can give him advice. He's got a half dozen here. They're all allowed to talk to him.
Yes.
All right? But the attorneys are not recognized. In fact, the attorney was told not to sit at the table, and he's not obeying that recommendation. There's a row behind you, sir. That's where you were told to sit, and you're not. And now you're disrupting the proceedings. And so, look, this is the way Anthony Fauci wants to be remembered. For a lawyer not listening to the rules. That's the way you want to be remembered, and that's what you're going to do. You are not recognized, sir. Security, please remove him from the room.
Hey, he's clapping. Yo, this shit crazy, yo. Yo, this whole situation is wild, man. I wonder what took him so long.
Senator Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The COVID-19 pandemic is not the first or the last public health crisis to impact our nation. In December 2022, I released a report that identified significant failures in our federal government's preparedness and initial response to COVID-19. This report contained 17 key findings. It's a very large report, which I have right here. It contains 17 findings and corresponding recommendations, including the need to invest in sustainable domestic manufacturing capabilities for critical medical supplies, build the infrastructure needed to surge testing capacity for infectious diseases, and robustly fund public health emergency preparedness and responses across all levels of government. Unfortunately, multiple administrations, including the current Trump administration, have failed to fund or to reform our health preparedness. This is something that I would hope the committee in the future would investigate. It needs to be taken a look at. It also feels like a new public health threat is hitting us every month. There's a foodborne parasite affecting thousands of people in Michigan and across the country, and our federal agencies still haven't fully pinned down the source of that outbreak. Measles cases in this country are at the highest they've been in 35 years. More children are getting sick and even hospitalized from this preventable disease. Over 1,000 people have died from the Ebola virus in Africa, and we don't know how widespread this crisis actually is. We have a hantavirus scare on a cruise ship, and though it hasn't made headlines in the way that the screwworm threatening our food security has, I remain concerned about bird flu that is also spreading and could one day cause a pandemic. This is also something this committee should be investigating and holding hearings on. Since January 2025, the Trump administration has taken a number of actions to drastically weaken our ability to fight infectious diseases and biological threats that endanger Americans. These actions are both incomprehensible and are also inexcusable. They include slashing funding for public health and infectious disease research. This committee, as I mentioned, record without objection, Mr. Chairman, a letter that I sent to you that detailed all of those areas that we have concern with and where we were shut out. Without objection, we'll provide other details as well. I think today's hearing, unfortunately, does real damage. It's tempting to turn one person into the scapegoat for a crisis that hundreds of officials across both the Trump and the Biden administration were responsible for handling. It does so in a way that people that are facing death threats. This is only going to, unfortunately, deter other scientific experts from public service. to understand that this is what they would have to go through as they provide. Starts with the Constitution. What is the fifth?
On the advice of counsel,
It was dead on. Very, very well done, Future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I will echo Senator Johnson's comments about your opening statement, Mr. Chairman. I think it was dead on. Very, very well done. Mr. Fauci, do you know who David Schertler is?
What's up, Shaw?
on the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. What does the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution say?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Can't answer shit.
No, I'm just asking you what it says.
Like, yo, this is crazy. Yo, this is the I can't believe that this happening. Yo, this is the guy that had all the fucking answers, man. Yo had all the answers, yo. If you had any questions surrounding COVID-19, Dr. Fauci was your guy. Him and Bill Gates. They need to bring old Bill Gates ass up this bitch too. They should have did the hearing together. Yo had all the answers, yo. Now he don't got nothing for us. That's crazy, yo. I'm disappointed. Disappointed in our American government. Yeah, man, right. This nigga was an expert in COVID-19. You heard me. Now he ain't got nothing for us. That's crazy, Fauci.
The advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
I'm going to give the Constitution to my aide. He'll bring it over to you so you can have it for future reference. I think it's something that every American should know what the Constitution says. Do you know who wrote the Fifth Amendment?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
So you're invoking a right that you don't know who wrote it or what it says. Is that correct?
Now, that nigga's on everything, yo. Good Morning America, Nightline, Dateline, ESPN, Fox Sports, BET, motherfucking CW, fucking Nick at Night. Yo, this nigga was everywhere, yo.
To answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Wow. All right, let me tell you who David Schertler is for the audience because he was ejected by the chairman. He's a high-profile criminal attorney. He's represented some really great people, like Senator Bob Menendez. Maybe that's somebody who my Democrat colleagues may remember took gold bars as bribes from the Egyptians. And there's an article here in the Washington Free Beacon that talks about why you would hire a guy like David Schertler, and the comment is, if you're in deep shit, that's who you call. Do you feel like you're in deep shit?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Clearly, what you think today is that somehow you're above reproach. Somehow you feel like you don't need to be treated like a normal American. Can you do me a favor in the audience and stand up if during the time of the COVID pandemic, you were called a racist for calling the virus a Wuhan virus or the China virus? If you thought the 6-foot rule was total crap, if you thought the vaccine wasn't something that you should take, if you thought it was outrageous the way the mask policy was rolled out, if you were fired from your job for not taking that vaccine, including members of the military, if you thought closing schools was catastrophically stupid, and that you thought that during these times saying these things made you somehow a lesser human being. Dr. Fauci, can you just turn around and look at the people behind you?
Look at the people, man. I'm standing up.
You're not willing to do that? That's not a question. It's not a question. To your lawyers, not a question. It's a request. All you have to do is look up from your lawyers and look at the people who were absolutely shamed for saying what we know now to be the truth. You can't even look at them? That's a question. Are you able to look at them? You can sit down in the audience.
That's crazy, yo. That shit's fucking crazy. Yo, he a piece of shit, man.
There was a mom in Ohio during the depth of the coronavirus pandemic. Decided to go to her high school football game for her son. They hadn't been out much. The kids had been learning at school.
Yo, you remember, you couldn't even visit your family at the fucking hospital, man. Yo, you couldn't, family members was dying, and you couldn't even fucking visit them, man. They was throwing bodies in mass graves. Like, do people not understand? Like, this shit was crazy, yo. Y'all don't remember on the news? They was making mass graves for people and just dumping bodies in that bitch. No funeral ceremonies. That's crazy.
And then the school got shut down. They hadn't really gotten much out of that education. As any parent knew that remote learning was no learning at all. But it's a Friday night. Her son wanted to go watch a buddy go play football. So they went to the stadium. They sat alone, far from everybody else. Just a mom, a dad, a few kids.
Right.
They didn't feel they needed to wear masks.
Ventilators was killing people. If a woman had a baby, you couldn't even see the baby. Man, that's That was wild, yo. That was wild. And it's crazy that the same guy that was all over the news now can't tell us nothing. That's crazy. And he getting away with it. Fauci need a shit slapped out of him on GTA. Like at the very least, if he can't be held liable criminally, he should at least get the shit slapped out of him by everybody. Like they should just have a meeting. We just slap the shit out of Fauci. For real, like that need to be what was done. Yo. I think a lot of people feel good about that.
Because it was stupid. Because they were outside. They all live together. They're not near anybody. Dr. Fauci, do you know what happened to that mom and that family? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
They were dragged out of that stadium and arrested. Those policies were put in place because you had moronic politicians that listened to the words of a megalomaniac.
Yo, remember they was putting the death count on the news. And they look at the numbers, they still silencing it. Like you still really can't talk about this in hold on.
Those rules arrested that mom for watching a football game with her own family outside. When that story broke, I said to myself, I cannot stand idly on the side and watch this happen. It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the fuck do you think you were for doing that? It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people. I will make it my mission to make certain that every single one of those Democrats who did that will see that clip over and over and over again. Because there is no defense of what you did. You may have had a 50-plus year legacy of public service, but it ends in total and complete disgrace.
Y'all can't hear? Y'all can't hear? Oh man, see, here we go with the dumb shit. Somebody else let me know if y'all can hear or not, man. You can't hear, bro. You can't hear, bro. All right, bet.
I'm going to ask you an opportunity to answer one question. Will you apologize, just apologize, to the people who you harmed through your actions? Will you say, do you have the dignity to just say you're sorry?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
So you won't apologize to the military members who Joe Biden summarily dismissed from the military for not taking the vaccine?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to the business owners that lost their business, shattered their lives, and they'll never recover?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to the moms who had to force their infant children, 2, 3, 4-year-olds, to put masks on, and what that did and how that traumatized those kids?
Under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to the family members of the people who died because they took your advice and not only got the first vaccine, but the 5, 6 other boosters that they did not need?
To answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to that mom from Ohio for being arrested for watching a football game with her family?
Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
So you didn't know who wrote the Fifth Amendment. It's James Madison. Lived in this town. I can only wonder what he would think of somebody like you invoking his writings. Somebody like you to shield culpability for the actions that you took. It's no secret why you have to hire the biggest dirtbag attorney on the planet, because of what you did. I hope you're paying him well. And I hope that one way or the other, somewhere, sometime, you answer for your crimes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back to the dark days of the coronavirus pandemic, one of the darkest days or times in our history. Hospitals were overflowing. Navy medical ships were docked in the Hudson River. Emergency rooms were forced into unprecedented triaging during the worst week of the pandemic, which happens to have been the last week of President Trump's first term. More than 25,000 Americans died of COVID-19.
That's just sad.
Easy to forget those dark days. But for the past 18 months, the Trump administration has been engaged in a campaign to rewrite this history. And today's proceeding, I fear, is part of that effort. One of the darkest days in our Senate's history. The Trump administration has launched a baseless set of smears against vaccines that help pull us onto which since the pandemic because of the lies that are told about him. His attorney has been gagged, thrown out of this hearing.
Listen to this shit right here. I don't want to hear nobody in defense of Fauci, man. No, if I'm fast forwarding that shit. She said no defenders.
Science to back up your opinion.
The best data are autopsies. So in the largest autopsy series published to date, I know because I'm the senior author. Of all the deaths we examined, and we re-reviewed them, we had an adjudication committee, we had ways of arbitration, deciding on did the vaccine cause death. The answer is, of these cases that came in for autopsy after vaccination, 73.9% of individuals, it was determined that the vaccine was the cause of death. First author is Hosher and colleagues who's sitting right behind me.
74% of the people that was dying from COVID was dying. Well, I ain't gonna say that was dying from COVID. That got reviewed in this study died from the fucking vaccine, man. 74%. It's crazy. And they want us to villainize our people for the crimes that they do. Man, fuck out of here. Nope.
Nope. gas, no oil, no problem.
Listen to this.
There's one system.
There's not much money he made.
If you're looking to upgrade your heating system this fall or Senator Olling.
DC Bloodline, what it do?
Well, nothing says honesty like taking the fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights
listen to how
under the
much
Fifth
money he
Amendment
made.
to the Constitution.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyer is sitting behind you now, shifting nervously in their chairs.
Can I just tell my little cousin that when he was in with this bitch ain't know what the fuck he was talking about? He ain't got no fucking, he can't plead the fucking fifth. He already been pardoned.
1896, when he
Let's do it again.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyer is sitting behind you now, shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic, you got rich, didn't you? You got rich while people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich. And not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally. Cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
You remember Greg Folkers? Who was that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Your chief of staff is the answer. Do you remember Patricia Conrad? Who was that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
She was your personal assistant. And what were these individuals doing in the depth of the pandemic in November of 2020, when millions of Americans were suffering from COVID? What were they doing? I tell you what they're doing. Folkers was on your behalf soliciting and gathering information for a cash award. Let's look at it. We've got his email right here, right over my shoulder. Folkers says, I'm working on this nomination for the Dan David Award for Fauci. We need to beef up the COVID part. Do you have language in the can that you could share that delineates how we responded in new ways to
We need to beef up the COVID part.
COVID? He sends this to multiple federal employees. What was the Dan David Award? Do you remember, Doc?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
It was a $900,000 cash award. $900,000 cash award. And he got it because he used federal employees to get it. And this wasn't the only award, was it, Dr. Fauci? In fact, you applied for and received at least 8 other federal cash prizes on federal time using federal employees and federal resources. Here they are over my shoulder. Besides the Dan David Award, you've got the Partnership for Public Service, you've got the Adelson Prize, you've got the Smithsonian Award, you've got the National Academy of Medicine's Award, you've got the CDC Foundation. In fact, you turned your staff into a full-time application machine. You actually wrote to people and said, do you think maybe I'd qualify?
And you got cash for all of this.
Wow.
And it wasn't just 1 or 2 employees, was it? In fact, you used 8 separate federal employees on federal time using federal resources to solicit cash awards. Isn't that true?
Dirty bastard.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon
Yeah,
my
for real.
rights under the
Appreciate it,
Fifth
SO.
Amendment to the Constitution.
Here they are right over my shoulder. Here's all of them.
I mean, SO said, thanks for reporting this. I had no clue. He don't need to be slapped. He need the death penalty of life. For real, yo, this should be treason, y'all. This should be fucking treason, man.
You use federal employees so that you could go and get cash money. And the most hilarious part is that you weren't content to even dragoon them into applying for all of these cash awards. You then had them go out to the ethics agencies and ethics watchdogs and demand that you be able to get the money. That's right. We've got it in your emails. Your staff and employees on federal time, using federal resources, being paid with federal dollars, are soliciting cash for you, and then they're turning around and saying to the agency, we don't want just an answer, we want to get to yes, because Fauci wants the money.
Damn.
He wants it. We want to get to yes, and yes takes time. This is your chief of staff again, using federal email to pressure the agency's own ethics people so that you could get money. So that you could get rich. And it violated the law. Didn't it, Dr. Fauci? Didn't it? It violated the law, didn't it? It is a question. You can answer. Go ahead.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Federal law, as you very well know, prohibits the solicitation of cash awards or other personal benefits for federal employees. And it certainly prohibits using your own employees to do this. 5 CFR section 2635-205B. It says it right there in black and white. You cannot use federal resources, federal dollars, federal employees, federal offices, federal email, federal time to solicit cash awards, and you did all of it. And the worst part is thousands of people were dying while you were doing it. You were supposed to be the nation's doctor, and you're playing one on TV, but this is what you were doing with your time. Isn't that true?
If you sit on the toilet, bear down, and barely anything comes
They a
out. You don't have
scumbag,
constipation, you have
Yo, but I gotta
paralysis.
talk about.
But this is
Oh, I'm gonna let this play.
what you were doing with your time. Isn't that true?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, I can see why. I can certainly see why. You know what I can't quite figure out is that why you were so obsessed with it, because you're already rich. I mean, and your scheme worked here. I mean, your net worth now is north of $12 million. You got over $1 million in cash awards during COVID, during a 12-month, 24-month span during COVID. $1 million you knocked down in cash money using federal resources. Now you're worth more than $12 million. You've got a pension that in its first year paid out north of $400,000 a year. 1 million people dead, you're getting rich. 1 million people dead, you're using federal employees to get cash awards for you. 1 million people dead, and you're here taking the fifth because you don't want to admit that what really happened in all that time was a multi-month, multi-year course of self-dealing. Isn't that true, Dr. Fauci?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, well, silence is admission. And here's the real thing. At the end of the day, it wasn't just about the money, really, was it? It was really about a power trip. I mean, through all of this, you want to be the most famous scientist in the world. You were so focused on getting every award and every drop of cash that you could, all because you wanted to be on TV. You wanted to be the sun god of science. You wanted to be the guy who was in charge of it all. You wanted to lambast Trump. You wanted to make sure that nobody else stole your spotlight. You wanted to be the guy. You had time to sit for In Style magazine. Here's what you were doing with your time. You could sit for In Style magazine, but you can't answer questions for the American people. You could sit for In Style magazine, but you're here taking the fifth. You could sit for In Style magazine and get $1 million in cash awards, but now the cat's got your tongue. I bet he does.
Oh shit, check
I
that
tell
out.
you what, here's my conclusion from all of this. This was really all about you the whole time. Somewhere along the way, you lost your way. You may have been a good public servant at one time, I don't know. But I can tell you from reading your emails now, from looking at what you did, how you used your employees, somewhere along the line, it became all about you. You became a narcissist and a megalomaniac and a liar. And you've lied to the American people, and you've lied to this body. And you've disgraced your profession by doing it. You called yourself the most famous scientist in the world. You've done more to harm science than anybody in my lifetime. And I hope you'll go home and write that in your diary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Fetterman.
Have you heard about Pop-On Roofing? We need 50
Joe
homeowners
scumbag.
in your area to trial this radically simple new...
I'll echo Senator Johnson's comments about your opening statement, Mr. Chairman. I think it was dead on. Very, very well done. Mr. F- know what the Constitution says.
Yeah, y'all. I had to report on this, man. Because it validates what I've been saying for a while about Dr. Fauci and that whole COVID-19 nonsense. Let me change the title so we can get some people in here. Because we got to talk about Stephen A. Smith. Got to talk about Stephen A. Sellout Smith. Yeah, he is. Man, fuck no, you'll never trust the government. Now, so let me take this out the title so they can tick me off restriction. Alright, so Stephen A. Smith. Yo, I did a video a while ago, right? Basically calling out Stephen A., Shannon Sharp, Chris Broussard, and all of these people that was coming after Kyrie Irving when Kyrie Irving shared the tweet. Right? They all came down on him, talked about how he was the dumbest player in the world and he don't care about basketball and he need to be suspended and all this other shit. No, because I believe once a person show you their true colors, believe them. And once you cross that line into like the corporate field, once you put corporation over community, yo, stay over there. Now, Stephen A. Smith has a habit of bouncing back and forth, you know. He sides with corporation when it's beneficial, then sides with the black community. We got a lot of that going on. A lot of motherfucking bunny hopping. You know, a lot of people just use us when it's beneficial. Now, Stephen A. Smith also had an issue behind Kyrie Irving's stance against COVID, right? If you don't remember his stance against COVID, and I was going to turn this to a video, yo, but I've been working like a bitch. So I ain't really had time. But I can play y'all what he had to say. It should be in my history because I screen recorded all of this shit. Where the fuck is the rest of the videos at? Kyrie Irving COVID.
Check you out, getting ready for the first day of school like you did not just change the whole vibe overnight. Sneakers?
Do whatever I want with this. This is one body that I get here, one God body that I get here. And you telling me what to do with my body has nothing to do with the Nets, has nothing to do with my teammates. This has everything to do with what's going on in our world, and I'm being grouped in to something that's bigger than just the game of basketball. Just know I'm rocking with all those that have lost their jobs to this mandate, and I'm rocking with all those that chose to get vaccinated and are choosing to be safe as well. I'm on both sides of all this. It's not about being anti-vax or about being on one side or the other. Like it's just really about being true to what feels good for me. I'm still uncertain about a lot of things, and that's okay. If I'm gonna be demonized for having more questions and taking my time to make a decision with my life, then that's just what it is. Basketball is like a religion. Entertainment is like a religion to people. They like get so caught up emotionally. It's just like, yo, effing get vaccinated or just leave. We angry at what you're doing, man. And it's just like, nah, that's like, what are you talking about? I'm a human being. I have emotions. I have feelings. I have thoughts. Pay attention to what's going on out in the real world. People are losing their jobs to these mandates. People are having to make choices with their own lives, which I respect. And I don't want to sit here and play on people's emotions either. Just use logic. If you felt uncomfortable going into the season when you were promised that you would have exemptions or that you didn't have to be forced to get the vaccine, this wasn't an issue before the season started. This wasn't something that I foresaw coming where I prepared for it. Like it's crazy times we're in. It's crazy times. Like how many people are really thinking with a balanced view? How many people are really thinking about the future of what's going on? We just came out of one of the craziest pandemics of all time, and you telling me to think rationally. How many people are really thinking rationally? Because it's going to continue to revolve around this and that, and you're going to lose out on money, and you're going to lose out on this. Like, so what? It's not about the money, baby. It's not always about the money. It's about choosing what's best for you. You think I really want to lose money? You think I really want to give up on my dream to go after a championship? You think I really just want to give up my job? You think I really just want to sit at home and not go after the things with my teammates that I've been able to grow with, to learn with?
I support any black man that's willing, any man, any woman that's willing to take a stance on a situation and don't back down. Willing to take a stance and also willing to accept anything that come along with it. And Kyrie Irving is one of them people. Jaylen Brown is one of them people. You feel me? Because the world that we living in, we ain't living in that world no more. Like, it's hard to find a person that's going to stand for something and not fall for anything. And also be willing to accept anything that come along with it. That shit is rare, man. Like, we just seen Kanye West went on this whole rant for years, only to come back and apologize. No, I don't agree with that. If you stand firmly on something, accept when you stand on something, this is how it's supposed to be and how it should be. When you stand on something, you gotta be willing to accept everything that come along with it. If it's losing opportunities, if it's losing money, if it's losing resource, whatever. You gotta be willing to do that, and Kyrie Irving is one of them ones that is willing to lose. And we have seen it time and time again. You understand? Like, Kyrie Irving's decision of not wanting to take the vaccine didn't affect anybody. But, they use these guys as public figures to push narratives, push agendas. Kyrie Irving stands in the way of that a lot of times. But you got to respect him because he's willing to accept everything that come along with it. Now, Stephen A. Smith was one of them guys over the years that has been taking a lot of personal attacks on Kyrie Irving.
He get paid $33.4 million this year. And I'm gonna try to be diplomatic, but I'm not gonna hold back. To answer the question directly, Molly and Max, Kyrie Irving should not be forced to engage with the media. He doesn't want to talk to the media. Fine.
No, this ain't it.
But here's the reality: he should be fined every damn day he doesn't talk. because you signed a contractual agreement that comes along with your contract as an NBA player. This notion that you just get to go out on the basketball court and play, but you don't answer questions, you don't talk to the media, whatever. Understand. If you're angry about the situation, but it feels like you always flip it back to Kyrie.
Well, listen, it's two things. I've done both. The same guy that's going at Kyrie is the same guy that says the mandate should be lifted.
But you can't blame Kyrie if you see what the situation is for the situation.
Oh, I most certainly can, because what did we say? Must I rewind the clock and remind you what we argued about? This is where you and I are diametrically opposed, so let's remind our audience of where
Yo, and I fuck with Jason Williams too, because Jason Williams don't back down when he's staying. Jason Williams is another one. That's why I don't even think is he still on ESPN? I'm sure they got rid of his ass. They want to get rid of anybody that's willing to stand on anything. Like I told you, for the most part, they only employ sellouts. Like in order to make it far in this entertainment space, or being a public figure, or being an influencer, you gotta sell out, man. You know, that's what stalls a lot of people. The inability to sell out. If you're willing to slick a Charleston White, if you're willing to sell your own people, or just speak things that you might not necessarily believe just because that's the narrative, then yo, you can get a lot of money in this shit, man. You feel me? I don't know if you're getting a lot of sleep, but you definitely can get a lot of money.
I am of the position that because you got cats to go to Brooklyn, that because the league mandate is what it is, and because 99% of the league ultimately made the sacrifice because they got a job to do, you should have done it too. You disagree. You talk about putting self in your body and all of this other stuff, and I respect that, but I disagree because my whole point, listen, bottom line is this: I didn't necessarily want to take the vaccine, but I was going to because I knew it was the right thing to do, specifically because my employer says, you got to work. You got to.
Yo say he knew it was the right thing to do because his employer told him. That nigga ain't got his own mind. I don't think Stephen A. Smith ever had an original thought. Like, he ain't got it. If he do, that motherfucker's gonna change at the fucking snap of a finger. Shit, I just got a call. But so we can listen to that shit on the ride. Cause y'all gotta hear his apology to motherfucking Kyrie Irving. You gotta hear his apology, y'all. And I'm rejecting his apology for Kyrie Irving. You know what I mean? I'm rejecting Stephen A. Smith apology for Kyrie Irving, yo. We decline, yo. We don't accept that shit. He has done too much character assassination to Kyrie Irving over the course of Kyrie Irving's career for his apology to be accepted. Because I don't even think, and that's what my video gonna do if I decide to do it. I don't even think this is the worst he's done to Kyrie.
Got a team to look out for. This is what our conditions are. I'm looking at millions upon millions of people across the country. This is the mandate is. I'm looking at the NBA. A lot of your teammates did not want to take the vaccine, but they did it. You are holding out. Fine. But in the process of holding out, just understand, you could potentially cost your team a championship, because with Kyrie on the floor, with KD, they are that lethal. They can beat anybody. That's Milwaukee. That's Philly. That's Miami. I'm not saying definitively it will happen, but I believe they can beat anybody. The Warriors, the Phoenix Suns, them two together on their game could win the whole thing. And in the end, when we look at them, because we know what KD's gonna bring, when we look at them, if they don't do it, what's gonna be the reason it didn't happen?
So, is Kevin Durant angry at Kyrie Irving?
No, clearly not.
He's not.
Oh, really? We want to go.
He's
here?
not.
We want to go.
I'm going. I've already been.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
He's not
Go
angry
ahead.
at Kyrie.
Go ahead.
So I get your
Kevin
frustration.
Durant. He did this. Where I'm going. He did this.
So
Kevin Durant.
So wait. Go ahead. Kevin's angry at the situation. That's what I've heard. I mean, Nick Burdell was on our show earlier talking about multiple conversations with Kevin Durant about the fact about the situation being something that KD's more angry about than Kyrie Irving. Okay. So all I'm sitting here saying is, yeah, it's frustrating as a fan to see Kyrie Irving one night drop 60. Right. I get where your animosity, where your frustration comes from.
I want to see him play.
You want to see people ball out. What I'm trying to tell you is because he did.
All right. So listen to Stephen A. Smith now. Now that Dr. Fauci then all but admitted that it was a scam and he ran a play on people. Now listen to him.
The team in good hands, and then I made sure to get a hold.
I think he need to go on ESPN and say it. Like, I'm tired of these guys. These guys do damage on huge platforms and then go to a smaller platform and apologize. No, yo, go back to that same platform where you were slandering this man at, where that audience is, and get up there and apologize there. I still won't accept it, but I think that'd be
Have you ever seen a product that transforms
I think that'd be more credible.
any ordinary space into a dreamy underwater world in just 1 second? Meet the Kamau Immersive Ocean Projector, the mood light that's taking the market by storm.
Cool. Hold on, y'all. Let me call this customer right quick. I'm ready to put it on mute. Hold on, give me like 2 seconds. Now listen to Stephen A. Smith now, y'all.
And Cooper Flag was continuing to develop and ascend. He wasn't really needed. So Kyrie Irving eventually will be back next season. And he'll be the superstar guard that we know him to be. A scoring machine. This is about him, the man. The reality is that Kyrie Irving, no matter what we think, may have been more right than we have given him credit for, and unquestionably was more vilified than he deserved.
Now let me say this, y'all. Man, shit. No, the fuck it ain't. This online presence ain't bigger than ESPN, bro. How could you say that? You think his platform reaching more people than ESPN? I disagree with that, bro. And it's too late. The damage already done. You can't. That's like Vlad apologizing to Minister Farrakhan 5 years later. Nah, bro. I don't think he get no credit for that. For real. He's better off just not saying nothing. You already did the damage, bro. And it ain't just this. He has a history of attacking Kyrie Irving whenever Kyrie Irving takes a stance. And you got to remember the role that media plays in these guys' career. Media is pivotal with these guys when it comes down to public perception, when it comes down to contract negotiations. Like Stephen A. Smith does damage with a lot of his takes. He repeatedly attacked Kyrie Irving, the person, on numerous occasions. How many people does First Take ESPN reach daily? How many people does
First Take on ESPN typically attracts between 490,000 and 520,000 viewers each day.
Come on, bro. No, it's not. It's not. This video has 405,000 views. So it's not. It's almost, but it's not bigger, bro. We just heard the numbers.
And ladies and gentlemen, it starts with me. Keep telling y'all before on many, many occasions, I'm a man. If I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong. But when it comes to Kyrie Irving, I can't apologize strongly enough. You know, you may be wondering what I'm talking about because you may not be paying but so much attention to politics. I do. I always have and I always will. Not from an aficionado's perspective, but just as a conscientious observer, watching the news, watching these shows, listening to perspectives, reading the newspapers, etc. I pay attention to some degree.
And that's just First Take. You know, while it's airing, you can't mention the other avenues and other areas that First Take is broadcasted on. I think First Take, the platform that ESPN gave him, probably doubles the numbers that he can reach on his own.
Not an expert. But I watched a gentleman by the name of Dr. Anthony Fauci show up on Capitol Hill. Show up on Capitol Hill just this past Wednesday. And Dr. Fauci was up there. And he was testifying. He was appearing before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee because they wanted to know specifically about his knowledge in regards to the coronavirus pandemic and what role he may have played, inadvertently or otherwise, in what ravaged this country and this world for over a year, if not longer.
2 years.
1.2 million American lives were lost. Worldwide, more than 7 million deaths were officially reported. The World Health Organization estimates approximately 14.9 million excess deaths in the year 2020 and 2021 alone.
Save up to 30% when you bundle and save. Download the app to book now.
All right, you got to stop buying generic Viagra if y'all over.
I asked about ESPN's First Take. I asked specifically First Take, bro. Reminded. I didn't ask about ESPN. I asked about First Take. How many viewers does First Take reach daily? That's what I asked.
40, you can get 9 pills of 100 milligram generic Viagra for just $7 with free shipping from Friday Plan. If you think it's a scam like I did at first, peep this.
We're riding a video.
And while that stuff was going on, we saw Dr. Anthony Fauci essentially protected. We saw him essentially labeled untouchable in terms of questions or scrutiny or anything like that. We saw vaccine mandates and booster mandates and, distancing stipulations and mask mandates and all of this other stuff. And along the way, there were a select few individuals in the world of sports, especially, that stood up and said, nah.
I mean, I'm just not one of the ones that allow people to bounce around. So once you side with a position as strong as he took a position, you can't apologize for that, man. That's my thing. You went strong against that man repeatedly, daily. The damage is already done, y'all. You can't apologize for that no more. Now, it was good, you can accept accountability in your own right, to make you feel better. But the damage is already done, bro.
I'm not down for this. And it was people like me who were critical of them. In my case, it wasn't about the vaccine itself.
It was about the fact that from a societal perspective, if we all got to deal with it, we all got to deal with it. And I looked at a willingness for one to sacrifice themselves for the betterment of the team, even though you thought something would be unhealthy for you, potentially. And I felt like it was worth the risk. I didn't want to take the vaccine, but I took it. Millions of other people didn't want to take the vaccine, but we took it. Why? Because there was a mandate that was that was handed down.
Because you was told to, because you ain't got a mind of your own. That's why you took it. I ain't take shit. The fuck you talking about?
And if we weren't willing to meet that mandate, our jobs, our livelihoods,
And I caught that shit twice.
if not compromised in a very significant way, would be completely stripped from us. But there were others who had the courage to say, bump that. And one of those people at the forefront was Kyrie Irving. I bring his name up because I had my issues with him from a leadership standpoint. Never as a player, because he's sensational. But with him, in terms of leadership. And I didn't look at it as being courageous. I looked at it as being selfish. And I watched Dr. Fauci on Capitol Hill yesterday.
You gotta remember, yo, Stephen A. Smith has the mentality of, I wake up every day to see how I can make my bosses more money and how I can benefit off of it too. That's a person that talks like that will never take a stance in opposition to the system. Ever. Because I wouldn't even said that shit. Even if you think that. He supposed to never told us that. That was crazy.
And the person I thought about most was Kyrie Irving.
I wake up every day to see how I'm going to make some money. And if the job can benefit in the process, salute to them. You feel me? Shit. That's how that's what the fuck I wake up and do. I'm trying to do, you know what I mean? If I can make some side money, hey, I'm trying to do that shit. Yeah, fuck that. I think the whole opposite.
Others, Aaron Rodgers, then of the Green Bay Packers, before moving on to the Jets.
I think one of the things that makes it special is our location. I mean, we're a very rural.
List went on and on. But Kyrie Irving stood out of my mind because of the heat that he was taking.
Heat that you gave him.
And now folks were piling on because that was just the latest transgression in their eyes that he was committing and subjecting the public to.
Why?
He refused the vaccine. New York City's mandate made him ineligible for home games. And he linked his stance to people losing jobs over vaccine mandates. It was Aaron Rodgers. Said he was immunized, not necessarily vaccinated. Tried to be slick with that. Conor McGregor, his vaccination. Again, Jonathan said Kirk Cousins remained unvaccinated and called up. I spoke out against Kyrie Irving. Years ago, as we learned and gathered more information, still not condemning Dr. Anthony Fauci, not saying that everything that he said was wrong. Still so much unknown about the pandemic, the coronavirus, its origin, its true, total, specific impact. We can't engage in condemnation completely anyway towards Fauci.
Look, and he's still leaving room open for optimism. He's still leaving room open for optimism. If you're going to take accountability, yo, take accountability. It should be no buts.
A lot of Democrats, a lot of businesses in corporate America and beyond who supported their position. But the real point is we can't condemn those who were a bit suspicious and raise the proverbial eyebrow about what was going on.
That
You
includes
already
not
know.
raising
Running
that
road.
proverbial eyebrow at
So
somebody like a
look,
Kyrie Irving.
no, yeah, I don't have no problems with, people can disagree. But, I'm one of the ones, if I believe something, I stand on it. And I can produce a good argument as to why I stand on it. Long as, that's my thing, yo. Whatever you do, as long as you can stand on it and produce an argument that makes sense, that justifies your stance, then, yeah, I can't argue with that. The problem is, a lot of people, and I ain't talking about you, but a lot of people have takes and they can't justify it. It's just, this is what I think, this is what I feel. I can't fuck with that.
Kyrie Irving is a phenomenal basketball player. He's also a good brother, conscientious, and never intended to hurt anybody. Just exercised his God-given right as a man and as an American citizen to do something differently than the public was pressuring him to do.
See, this the thing, y'all. You gotta understand, yo. When these analysts attack these players in the way that they do, sometimes this affects them, yo. Like I said, it affects their money. If Kyrie Irving Kyrie Irving had to sit out games because of this, and in most people's eyes, it was justified because of these analysts providing the case to back the fact that he should sit out games. If they stand in opposition to the narrative, it's going to be hard for these corporations to punish these guys unjustly when the whole world is watching and the whole world is standing against them.
I wasn't alone. There were many, many people who took that position. But they were wrong. And I was wrong. He deserved better. Especially from me. Back then, just to enlighten everybody, COVID almost killed me.
See?
Got it.
Now he's making the excuse again. Like, you can't apologize and then come back with an excuse. There's no excuse, bro. No excuse. If COVID almost killed you, then you don't chastise the next man because against.
Sick as a dog, couldn't shake it. In the emergency room, 90 minutes before the ball dropped in Times Square to bring in 2022. Doctors told me this antibiotic and this steroid is what you need to use. If this doesn't work, we're going to have to call your family. I had double pneumonia.
Nigga probably lying.
Stemming from COVID, which plagued me for more than 3 weeks. Couldn't breathe, woke up in cold sweats every night.
COVID did last a long ass time. I don't know, about 3 weeks probably stretched, but I remember being sick at least 2 weeks. Close to 2 weeks. But it still didn't make sense to shut the country down for something that was obvious it wasn't going nowhere. Because it's airborne. Once the virus gets airborne, there's nothing to do about it. It's going to be around forever.
As if I had jumped into a pool with my clothes on. Some people, like my sister, had it and were better in 3 days. It nearly killed me.
I can get $150 the same day I request it. Download Grant Cash Advance from the App Store today.
Your next breakdown could cost thousands.
Unless you have endurance.
I will never pay. One size never fit all. With this virus.
during this pandemic.
Now, I remember a lot of people getting fired behind.
But yet there were many people encouraging folks to do it anyway.
That shit was wrong, yo.
Kyrie Irving wasn't one of them. In my opinion, particularly hindsight-wise, it didn't make him stubborn or selfish. It made him brave. For his willingness to stand up and say, nah, I'm not doing that. It's just a time for reflection to look at things differently.
Now, the most egregious thing, yo, outside of the firing, yo, was the mass graves that they was digging for people. It was a fear-mongering campaign. I said this back then. If you report or keep a tally on the amount of deaths of anything, it's going to create public fear. It's going to create hysteria. You understand what I'm saying? They had a tally of the deaths on the side of the screen of ESPN, of Fox. I'm talking about tallying it. Like, yo, what the fuck is this? Like, that right there was enough for me to be like, yo, hold up, yo, this is bullshit. You feel me? If I was to tell you how many people, or on the side of my screen, had the amount of people that died from cancer every fucking minute, then yo, people wouldn't smoke. People would watch what they eat. If I had, like, yo, you can do that with anything. With anything. And people is going to be in fear. It was a dirty game that we played.
And with Kyrie Irving, that should certainly be the case. Especially now, after what we witnessed on Capitol Hill yesterday. And I see anybody testifying. And every time I see further suspicions coming to light about what it entails, I think about him. I'm just sorry. It wasn't intentional.
It definitely was intentional.
It was what I believed. And I didn't even believe there wasn't stuff that was suspicious about the vaccine. I always vibe with Kyrie Irving about that. I just felt that in the end, I was a leader at ESPN. He was a leader for his NBA team. And to get stuff flowing towards normalcy and recapturing.
So he just admitted that he basically was told to do that. I was the lead. I had to set an example. And I had to make Kyrie Irving the motherfucking face of it. That's what he just said, yo, in the midst of his apology. That's what he just said.
Our quality of life in this world and in this country. That it was worth taking a chance. And every time I see additional information oozing out of Capitol Hill anywhere else, adding credence to the suspicions that took place, I think about him.
See the grandma, man, straight up. I know both my grandparents got it. I told them not to get it.
I think about the Aaron Rodgers too, who's a good dude.
Why you throwing every, like, if you want to apologize to Kyrie Irving, apologize to Kyrie Irving, why? You shouldn't be mentioning nobody else. You know? Because you didn't come at them as aggressive as you came at Kyrie Irving. That man had aggressive attacks against that man's character, man. Outside of sports. Outside of sports. Like, his assassination attempts on Kyrie Irving's character, it had nothing to do with basketball. It was all about him as a person, his decision making. And like he said, the lead of ESPN, he had to make a motherfucking, he had to make a statement. shit crazy. Yo, but I just pulled up on this too, man. I appreciate all y'all, man. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. Make sure you share it live. So know that keeping you new.